What's up, guys? The other day we got this old Mack roll-off truck running that came into the scrapyard a few weeks ago, and today I just want to spend a little bit of time, see if we can get it fired back up, and if so, see if we can get the bed working on the back. In that original video I pulled the levers and kind of flipped some of the switches in the cab and nothing happened, but that's as far as I went with it because I was running out of time and I had to get out of here. So today I'm hoping that it'll fire right back up and we can spend a little bit more time trying to figure out why it's not working. And also, if you watch that video, you know this truck's in pretty bad shape, so we don't ever plan on using this truck or putting it back on the road. But if the bed works, I'd like to transplant it onto a nicer, newer truck. But anyways, let's get started. Also, from my other video, I still have the batteries in this truck. Ignore the crazy cables. If you watch that video, you know I couldn't find the right size cable, so I just had to use these long ones. But it works and it fired up. So I guess the first things first is let's check the hydraulic fluid, and I'm going to get under there and kind of make sure none of the lines are disconnected, and then I'll get in the cab and see if there's a PTO control switch. I don't really think that there is because the front pump the PTO pump is actually run off the front of the motor on this, and this thing was spinning last time even with just the motor running, so I think it should have power all the time, or at least hydraulic pressure all the time. But anyways, I don't have much experience with that style pump because I don't have any trucks that are like this. But anyways, let's just fool with it and see what happens. All right, let's see if this thing has fluid in it. I don't have anything to stick down in there. Of course, I can't see anything about a stick. Oh wow. Yeah, that thing's got to be full of fluid. It's probably full up to this sight glass. That sight glass looks full, but I couldn't really tell just because it's so glazed over. But so the tank's full. That's good. I don't see any leaks or anything underneath it. This thing's been sitting here for a few weeks now, so if it was leaking fluid, I think that there would be a spot underneath. Well, this valve is off. I can hear it opening inside there. Okay, well, I don't know if the towing company turned that off while they towed it here, just in case it was leaking. That way it wouldn't leak all over the road, and that would sort of stop it, or if there was some sort of issue with it before and that's why they turned it off. But as far as I can tell, it's full of fluid. That would make sense why it wasn't working, because it didn't have any fluid before, but I don't see anything, so I'm gonna fire it up and see what happens. So it was definitely just the valve was turned off, because last time I had it running, I pulled the levers there on the manual controls and nothing worked. In a second, I'm going to try those air controls in the cab once it builds up a little air. There's water leaking off of that mud flap sitting on top, so I just wanted to make sure that I didn't see any hydraulic leaks. I didn't see anything from over there, but I just wanted to double check. The cylinders, the lift cylinders aren't even leaking, which is surprising. I expected those to at least be seeping. Now, of course, there's no load on it. If there was a heavy box up on the back of the truck, it may leak. But wow, I'm not sure if you could see that I was smiling as soon as I pressed that lever and that thing went up. I can't believe that that's all that was preventing it from working. No issue going all the way up. Those cylinders fully extended and came back down. And then I was just testing the cable cylinders, and they seem a little more jumpy. I think there's some air in the system. They're not wanting to go in and out quite as smooth. I just wanted to keep checking and making sure it wasn't the cable binding up somewhere, or a frozen pulley or something where it was working against itself and was going to end up breaking something. But it looks like everything's working. It just, like I said before, this thing's been sitting for probably 10 years, so I can only imagine that the hydraulics haven't been used, which is why I'm surprised that it's not leaking anything. And then also, because the suspension's so rusty and it's got flat tires, the frame is kind of twisted and sitting at an angle, so it kind of looks funny going up and down. But I think that's the only reason. All the pins are pivoting and the cylinders are moving fine, and I don't see any major issues with the actual hoist system itself, which again is all I'm really after on this truck. So this is I'm pleasantly surprised with how well this has been working. Let's try the air controls in the cab and see if those work. Controls definitely work. I'm not going to keep using those. It sounded like maybe the cable's binding up when I was moving the cable cylinders, so I'm going to use the manual. Yeah, you can see where those were pulling back in. The cable wasn't coming down. That's because there's nothing pulling the cable this way. It's just sort of sitting there. So I'm not real familiar with these type systems, but I'm sure the only thing that pulls that cable this way is the weight of the actual roll-off dumpster itself. So with no dumpster on there, I'm going to have to pull that hook back as I pull the cylinders back in. Well, that's great. Everything worked as well as I had hoped. The only minor issue that I did notice, I had talked about the cylinders sort of jumping as they came in and out. I thought maybe they had air in them, and that could have been part of a possibility. But if you see these guides right here where the cylinders ride in and out, they're a little bit bent up. So I think the ends of the cylinders that have the pulleys on them were sort of binding up or catching the sides a little bit from where the guides are bent. But no big deal. I think normally these would be greased so that they would slide easier, and then where this is sort of bent down through here, this would be up, that way it doesn't touch it. But that's a pretty minor issue for what we got going on with the rest of it. Really no big deal there. That can be taken care of pretty easy. But the good news is I don't see any reason why we couldn't use this system on another truck. I am going to turn that main valve on the supply tank back off just in case while this thing's sitting here. Now that I've used it, one of the lines, if it blows or leaks, or one of the cylinders starts to leak, it just leaks a little bit of fluid out and not an entire tank's worth. So overall, I would definitely say this is a success. I'm very happy that that went the way it did, and now we've got another project on the list. Well guys, I think that's pretty much it for this one. I'm definitely happy with how that turned out, and it's safe to say that this thing's officially been added to the project list. So I'll be looking for a nicer, newer cab chassis truck for us to swap this system onto. And it's pretty funny how things work out around the scrapyard sometimes, because for a few years now we've been talking about switching over to this cable style system, but we haven't done it just because the cost associated with it. So with this thing coming in, that's going to allow us to take a plunge into this style system and style container without having to spend a whole lot of money. So it's nice how that works out sometimes. But as always, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you on the next one.